Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Scottsdale Big Book Study, where we will study the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today's date is Saturday, the 12th of October, 2024. My name is Maria F., and I'm a recovered compulsive overeater. I'm from County Dublin in Ireland, and I will be your host for today's study. Our co-host today is Danny P., and our Q&A is Tanya G. If you have any questions during the meeting or any concerns, please contact either myself or any of the co-hosts, and you can do this by private message in the chat function. Just note we will disable the chat function until 5 minutes before the Q&A, then we'll open it up again and you can post any questions you have for Harlan there. Please note that the speaker Harlan G will be recorded for the duration of today's study. However, the question and answer session which follows, we don't record that. And we ask if you can please keep your microphone on mute at all times during today's study. And also if you need to walk away from your camera for any reason, if you're eating, if you're driving, if you're exercising, please do disable your camera. Otherwise, we'll disable it at this end, just to let you know that. And during the meeting, we will post a link to our 7th edition, and this money goes toward the cost of our Zoom account, the cost of uploading our recordings, and we also send contributions to our intergroup, Arizona Serenity in the Desert, and also to WSO, which is our World Service Organization. Just to note as well that for Europe, the time will be different for 2 weeks. For the 25th of October and the 2nd of November, this meeting will happen at a different time in your time zone. I know in Ireland and in the UK, it's 3:30 p.m. here now. We'll go back to 2:30 for those 2 weeks only. So if you are in Europe, please do check the times next on the 25th of October and on the 2nd of November. So now we are going to go over to the man himself, to Harlan G. over in Scottsdale, Arizona. And good morning, Harlan. Can't wait to hear you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm so honored and thrilled that you guys are here too, because it would be very ridiculous for me to sit here and do this just by myself. It would be very absurd. Anyway, we are going to begin our discussion this morning of step 9, but just to sort of back up a little bit into step 8. We've made a list of people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And we make this list primarily off the 4th step. If I owe you money, I'm probably afraid to see you. If I've harmed you, I probably have some fear around seeing you. I probably don't want to have you confront me about maybe something I said to you or something I did. But more often than not, it was that I owed you money. More often than not, it was about money and lies I told about money and all that other stuff. So it was the last line that we read last week that I want to center on before we begin any discussion of step 9. It says here, read at the beginning. To change to MacBook Pro, my primary microphone. Okay, it was agreed at the beginning that can you hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good. Because that thing was getting hot on my ears, so I just decided to take it off. That's a little better than the normal thing. But anyway, that's okay. It was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. And that means I am going to have to prepare myself emotionally, financially, to make these amends. And unless I'm willing to do that, unless I am willing to go and make amends to the people I have harmed, I am not going to recover. That's so vital. I'm going to say it again. If I don't make amends to the people I have harmed, I am not going to recover from this disease. There are 4 impediments to God that are described by Sam Shoemaker. Sam Shoemaker was the rector at the Calvary Mission in New York City, and he had 4 impediments that he listed in a book called Twice Born Ministers. It's on page 93. This is not conference-approved literature.
but I'm just telling you where it comes from. I'm not telling you to go out and get it. It's not necessary that you read this to recover. Reading this book will not enhance your recovery at all. He listed 4 impediments to God. The first one being a resentment that you will not let go of. That became our step 4. He said a secret that you will not tell, which is step 5. He talked about a harmful thrill that you will not stop: stealing, gossiping, character assassinating, stealing money, whatever, cheating on your spouse, whatever that may be. And he listed these. And the last one that he listed is a restitution that you will not make. Now, remember that amends is AA language. Oxford groupers called them restitution. Bill Wilson called them amends. They mean the same thing. To restitute means to restore that which has been taken. Restitution comes from the same root word as restore. Amends means to alter. We don't apologize to the Constitution. We amend the Constitution. What does that mean? That means we make amends. And that means we do not, and I repeat, do not keep repeating the same harmful behaviors. If every time I see you, I act in a way that is harmful to you, I insult you, or I do something, whatever that may be, to harm you, and then I go make amends to you, and I keep repeating that same harmful behavior, my amends are garbage. They're garbage. I have to amend my behavior. 99% of my amends were money amends. I owed a lot of money. And I wrote a lot of bad checks. I lied about money. I did a lot of terrible things. And I can tell you this, and I will keep telling you this. I paid back everything. And at the end, I never missed a mortgage payment. I never missed a car payment. I never missed a meal. I never missed an electric bill. I never missed a phone bill. God provided for me. When I walk to God, He runs to me. And without a foundation of step 2, without a foundation of faith and the belief, the absolute knowledge, not even a belief for me. I don't believe God will restore me to sanity. I know God will restore me to sanity. I am standing on my floor of my house, and I do not suspect that it is going to give way. And I stand on the shoulders of God, and He elevates me, and He makes things possible for me that would have been impossible were it not for God. He makes the impossible possible. The impossible possible. Miracles, little miracles. And some of the people that I went to, they didn't want my money. They said, that's okay. We see what you're doing. We understand you were going through hell in a handbasket. And they said, that's okay. I don't want your money. Okay. And there were other people that said, I don't give a good damn about what you're doing. I want my money. They got their money. Maybe they didn't get it in one hunk. Maybe they didn't get it in one payment, but they got paid out until I was even with the house. So I have to have a second step foundation. And the foundation is for me, that God will do for me what I cannot do for myself. I cannot convince myself to make amends to anyone and embarrass myself and have to relive the lies I told and relive the things I did. I looked these people in the eye and lied right to their face. God made it possible for me to do so. And I made amends to people that I believed were much more harmful to me than I ever was to them. I'd like to tell you a little story about that. When I was new in recovery and not yet abstinent, I had opportunity to go to an endodontist. In my day, when I was much younger and much heavier, dentists did not do all the things that they do today. Today, you go to the dentist and they can do root canal and they can do crowns and they can do all kinds of stuff. Well, when I was much younger, this is early 80s. When I was much younger, dentists sent you out for almost everything. Dentists did cavities, they did cleaning, they did different kinds of simple things. And then if you needed root canal or you needed braces, which I didn't use, if you needed a bridge or you needed, they sent you out. And I imagine that they made their money. If you went to that doctor, they made a little bit of a pushback. Okay. So I go to this guy right near my high school, right near my house. And he was an endodontist because I needed a root canal. And he walks into the room. And the very first thing he says to me is, "You are the fattest human being I've ever seen in my life. How much do you weigh?" And this is how he greeted me. This is the "how do you do?" Now, his daughter, who was running the office, had already numbed me up. She had put the Novocaine in my gums so that I wouldn't feel any pain. And his daughter had told me, "He'll be in a minute." He comes in, he says, "You are the fattest human being I have ever seen in my life. How much do you weigh?" He says, "Why do you eat so much food? What's wrong with you?" He says, "I'm afraid you're going to break my chair. I'm afraid to be around you. You are the most obese person I've ever met." And when I learned as a child to just go numb, I learned as a child to sort of weather the storm because people, doctors, this guy, other adults, people, they would scream and yell about my weight. And they would scream at me. Sometimes I would cry later because they started doing this. I was 5, 6 years old. And they're screaming and yelling at my mother. They're screaming and yelling at my dad. They're telling my mother and father, "I'm not going to live long." No wonder I developed a defeatist attitude. No wonder I developed a negative attitude. I wasn't going to be alive anyway. Why should I do my homework? Why should I try in school? Why should I try to be a good boy? I'm going to be dead anyway, so F it. Screw it. So I had been screamed at before. Dr. Jacobson, right near my house. He was my pediatrician. He's the one that put me on diet pills. Dr. Jacobson used to scream at the top of his lungs at my mother and scream at the top of his lungs at my dad. And then he started screaming at me. And I was 5, 6 years old. So you learn to go numb. It looks like you're there, but I'm thinking about Superman and Batman, and I'm thinking about candy, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to watch on TV tonight or whatever. I'm really not there. I'm really not there. And so I learned to do this. And so this guy comes in and his face, now remember, he's an endodontist. He's giving me a root canal. His face is like right here. And he's working on my tooth. And the chatter is just, "How much do you eat for breakfast? What do you eat for dinner? Why do you eat between meals? Why do you eat candy? Why do you eat cake?" I mean, this is the dialogue. This is the entire dialogue that we're following here. And I'm just doing everything I can and hoping he'll finish the root canal and let me get the flock out of here. And I will never, in my wildest imagination, see this man ever again in life. Never. And he's yelling at me. And now he starts yelling at his own daughter. And he's yelling at his daughter because he doesn't want her to ever take an appointment from me again. He doesn't want me sitting on his office furniture. He doesn't want me in his office. He doesn't want me having a heart attack and falling on one of his patients. He doesn't want me falling on him. He's screaming. She says at the end, I get it, Dad. Dad, calm down. She said to her father, Dad, calm down. Well, in those days, and I'm going back over 40 years ago, things were a lot cheaper. A good endodontist today or a good root canal, your end of it's going to be $400, $500, $600. In those days, my copay, because I did have insurance, my copay was $62. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what this guy can do for $62. He can kiss my Royal American and kiss it good. I'm not paying this guy. I've stiffed better guys than him. I ain't paying this guy. So eventually they got a judgment against me for $62. I couldn't care less. There's no way over my dead body is this guy going to get his $62. Over my dead body. So eventually I left OA and I came back and I got a very mean sponsor. He used a lot of bad words and he used to poke my chest because remember, I came in, I was 24 years old. I was 30 years younger than any of them and hundreds of pounds heavier than any of them. And he'd say, are you out of ideas yet, kid? Are you out of ideas yet, kid? Because again, I'm young and they're old. Now I'm 70, so they don't seem so old anymore, right? Now I'm 70 years old. Those 50 and 60-year-old people are not that old anymore. Anyway, so I'm doing my fourth step, and I have a resentment against this endodontist. So I come to the ninth step. And on the ninth step, he shows up. I owe him $62. If I'm doing an honest inventory, I got to put him down, right? I owe the guy $62. Now, I have no intention of paying him. I'm not going to pay him. I don't give a damn if Moses and whoever comes out of the wood, if they come down from Mount Sinai and say, you need to make amends to this guy, I'll say, take me to hell right now. I ain't doing it. So I'm making other amends. And my sponsor says, what about the doctor? I said, he's an endodontist. He told me to shut the flock up. He says, you know who I mean. And he'd say, what about the dentist? And I'd say, he's an endodontist. He says, shut up. That's the way he would talk to me. Anyway, so there's not a lot of amends yet to make. And he's still on there. He's still on the list. And finally, I had to come to a conclusion that I'm either going to recover or I'm not. Now, I don't know about any of you. I have a very, very sick ego. And my ego is telling me that I'm the exception to the rule. I don't want to make amends to this guy, so I'm not doing it. I thought about lying. And it really crossed my mind to lie to my sponsor about it. And I was going to do that because we used to meet every Saturday. There's a Greek restaurant still there in Chicago on Lincoln Avenue. And we would meet there every Saturday. We would talk every day. But we would meet there every Saturday and we would have lunch together and we would talk and, he would yell and I would, whatever. No, we would talk and so on. And it was really good for me. I learned a lot about program from him in those Saturdays. If you ever hear me say, don't live to recover, recover to live, I learned that from him on those Saturday sessions that we had. If you ever hear me say, if you want different, you got to do different, I learned that from him. He used different words. he'd say, if you do what you did, you'll get what you got. I said, that may be too complicated for some people. And so I said, how can I simplify that? And I came up with a thing in my head. If you want different, you got to do different. His expression was, if you do what you did, you'll get what you got. If you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting. So I said, I just want to make this a little more streamlined. But I learned that from him on those Saturdays. I didn't used to drool till I got old, but that's okay. But anyway, my bottom line is a lot of what I talk about here and in meetings and in conventions and retreats comes from what I learned from him in those Saturday Greek restaurant meetings that we had. And he's dead now. He's dead now. He's been dead a long time. But I'm going to tell you something. A lot of what people tell me they really like about the retreats I do or the conventions I do came from him. It came from him. No, it really did. It came from him. A lot of it was my stuff too, but a lot of the foundation for that stuff was him. Okay. So anyway, I was going to lie about it. I was plotting on Saturday. I was going to tell him I met with the endodontist and I gave him his $62 and we're square. And then I thought maybe I'll tell him that the endodontist didn't want my money because he was so sorry about how he treated me. And I thought he's never going to buy that. He's never going to buy that one. So I figured that telling the truth and making the amends was the easier, softer way, because I didn't feel right lying to him. I had lied to everybody else in creation, but I didn't want to lie to him because I really, for the first time in my life, really wanted this thing. So I went to my bank, which was across the street from this guy's office. And it's not, that bank is not that bank anymore. It's another, it's still a bank, but it's not, that one's long gone, long gone. And I went in there and I can still remember the day. It was a Thursday. It was a Thursday. And I went to my bank account and the woman at the teller, she put a 50, a 10, and 2 ones in my hand. I could see her doing it right now. In my mind, she's giving me a 50, a 10, and 2 ones because I withdrew $62. And I remember the day. It was a beautiful autumn day, just like now in Chicago. It's beautiful. It's autumn, right around this time of year. And I went across the street and I did not see his name on the door. I figured this is odd, but I saw his daughter through the door because the door was really like a window. I saw his daughter and I saw her in there. And I went in there and I introduced myself to her and she says, I remember you. She says, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. I said, yes, I have. Thank you for noticing. I says, I owe you $62 and I never paid you. You guys got a judgment against me and blah, 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 but I need to give you the $62. She says, my dad died last year. She says, my dad passed away. And she said, I don't want your money. I feel horrible about the way he treated you. I says, lady, you don't know how much I need to give you this $62. I says, you will never have anybody that needs to give you $62 like I need to give you $62. Give it to charity, throw it out the window, put it in the hands of somebody who needs it, but I need to give you this $62. And I gave her the $62 and I made amends to her and I wrote a letter to him, but I paid that amend. I paid off that amends. You will hear me call step 9 and 5 the great emancipators. Steps 5 and 9 are the great emancipators. Why are they the great emancipators? Because 5 and 9 allow me to do something I didn't even know I wasn't doing. 5 and 9 allow me to get in touch with the fact that I, along with you, along with all members of the human race, are just people out here doing the best they can with what they have to carve out a life. Because I saw you and I figured my quivering, broken insides could not match your perfect, wonderful, fantastic life. You looked so together to me, even when I was 5, 6, 7. If you were thin and you were beautiful, or you drove a Cadillac, there were no Mercedes and all that then. If you drove a Cadillac, you are cool and smart and wonderful, and I suck. I suck and you are great. You are better than me. I will look up to you. Or if I perceived you as worse than me, stupider than me, I would look down at you. What I learned in my travels through program, and I know I'm not talking about necessarily the book right now, but I think this is important. 5 and 9 emancipated me from any thought in my head that says I'm better than another human being or I'm not as good as another human being. I am equal to, not greater than or less than. I know those are math terms, and I'm sorry about that. I don't like to talk about math, but I am not greater than you. I am not less than you. I am equal to you. And that thought has put me on a path that alleviated much of my self-loathing. Because this is not just a disease of eating for me. Maybe it is for you. I don't think it is, but maybe you do think it is. I don't know. This is not just about what you eat or any of that. It's about the hatred of self. And what I learned in my Travels Through program is that this is a disease of self-loathing and self-doubt. And I looked at other people later on in life, girls. I looked at other people and I thought to myself, if I could be with them, maybe not romantically, because that was out of the question at that time. I mean, I was a monster. But if they would be my friend, then God wouldn't hurt me. When I was in my car alone, I knew I could have a catastrophic accident. But if I had friends in the car, I knew that we would be protected because God would never allow anything to happen to them. And so I would be protected. Isn't that crazy? But that's what I thought. And through the working of 5 and 9, I am emancipated. And today, when I catch a glimpse of myself in a mirror, as I do every day, I brush my teeth, I shave, I this, I that, I don't hate what I see. I wish I was 20. I'm 70. I wish I was, 15. I wish I was, whatever. I wish I could go back and do it again so I could do it right, like we all do, but I can't. But the acceptance of myself today is an amazing emancipator. I keep using that word deliberately. And so, yes, I'm 70, but my health is good. Now, I don't know how long I might get hit by a bus today. What the hell do I know? I don't know. I might get hit by a bus tomorrow. I don't know. I'm flying on Monday morning. I'm flying to Chicago. Who knows? What the hell? Who knows? But the bottom line is, if I live, I can live the rest of my life with the knowledge, not just the belief or the suspicion, but the knowledge that I'm a good person. I may not be as rich as some. I'm richer than others. I'm equal to all of those people. I may not be as good looking as this guy, or I may not be as good looking as that guy. I'm okay. I'm all right. That's a lot to know. So 5 and 9 are the great emancipators. The great emancipators. What is an emancipator if you don't know? An emancipator is something that sets me free. Because whether I knew it or not, my mother was right. I am a slave to food. I am in bondage to the food. I did whatever the food told me to do, and I did it for decades. The food was my master, and I was its servant. I am also a servant to self-loathing and doubt. I'm a servant to doubt and fear and anger. And I can't live that way and be free of the food. I can't live that way and be free of the food. Now, I want to tell you about that Thursday. I want to go back to that Thursday. In those days, I went to a meeting at Swedish Covenant every day of my life. Every single day, I went to Swedish Covenant Hospital for a meeting of OA. And in those days, we had active treatment centers. We had 2 of them in Chicago. We had Parkside and we had the Rader Institute. So those treatment centers, which were very active in those days, they would pump incredible amounts of people into the meeting. You'd sit there and there'd be 75, 80 people, 100 people with hospital plastic on. The yellow was Rader Institute, the white was Parkside. I still use the Parkside food plan to this. The amounts have changed, but the principles of the Parkside food plan, I still use it today. Still use it today. But there was a meeting on Thursday night. Now I could barely eat my dinner. I would eat dinner and then walk the dog and then go to the meeting, come back, walk the dog again, and then go to sleep. And I gotta tell you that after I made these amends, my tires did not touch the ground on the way home. They didn't touch the ground. I was elevated off the earth because I had been emancipated by God. I barely choked down my dinner and I went to the meeting. And there was about 125, 150 people in this meeting. See, we had very big meetings before the insurance companies pulled the funding for the treatment centers. And you know why the insurance companies did that? Because the recidivism rates were 100%. They'd be paying $15,000 in those days for a month worth of treatment, and the people would walk out of the treatment center and start eating donuts. The recovery rate was so low, they stopped. They stopped. This is the most vicious addiction there is. There's no addiction more vicious than this. And so they pulled the funding, and our meetings went from 150 people to 12, 15, 8, 7 overnight. You go to a meeting of OA today. Now we're going to have a hell of a meeting at the OA birthday in Los Angeles on Thursday night. So get there early. Get there early. We're going to have a good meeting. We're going to have a big book meeting that night. And if I have to, I'll lead it, but I led it last year, so I want somebody else to do it this year. But the bottom line is we have a hell of a meeting, and there's going to be like 75 people there, 50 people, whatever. But you go to an average meeting of OA today, if you have 20 people there, that's like Woodstock. That's like a rock concert because the meetings are so small because we don't have the people from the treatment centers. But anyway, I got up to share. And in those days, you couldn't just share from where you sat. You had to go to the front of the room. All OA meetings in those days, you sat theater style. Today, we can sit around or we can whatever. You sat theater style. If you wanted to share, you'll see this at the birthday. They do it that way there too. You go up to the front, you get in line, and when it's your turn, you get up to share. I get up and I share this, and there were people coming up to me after the meeting with hugs, and because they had been following this drama of mine over the last few weeks, months, a month or two. They had been following this drama. And my sponsor at that time, the guy that used to yell at me, he said to me in the meeting, he pulls me aside. He says, "You did a lot of God's work today, kiddo." He says, "You showed people that no matter what, you put the bit in your teeth and you do what's right." He says, "You did a good job. You did a good job." Now, before we move on from this emancipator, I do want to tell you one other thing that's important. I don't know how much time we're going to have left because I want to tell you this. When you look at the 9th step, it says, "Made direct amends to those people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others." Okay? How did that come in there? And again, this is why you need a sponsor. You are going to decide in your mind that you are one of those people. So you can't make amends to this one. You can't make amends to that. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with others. I'm going to tell you the history behind that. But I want you to remember that if you go out and make amends without the guidance of a good sponsor, not a not good sponsor, a good sponsor, you can actually cause more harm than was originally inflicted on this person. You can actually screw up the situation worse than you ever could have imagined. So you need a sponsor that knows what the heck they're doing. Okay? Now it says here very clearly, made direct amends, not texting an amends, not emailing an amends, not leaving an amends on voicemail, but direct amends, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, direct amends to those people. So you get that they heard you and you get their reaction. I can't respond if you send me an email. I mean, I can, but you get the picture. And a lot of times with a text, you're sending me a text and your meaning is this way, and I'm perceiving it as something else. I got a text message just the other day from someone that I misperceived. I thought they were angry. No, they weren't angry. I was reading it, and for whatever frame of mind I was in, I perceived the words as an attack, and they were not, it was not an attack. So I've learned over the years, put in the smiley faces, put in the hearts, put in the whatevers, because a lot of times emails and text messages can be misperceived. By making direct amends, you cannot be misperceived. They see your face, they hear your words, they hear the inflection in your voice. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible. What if they're dead? You write them a letter. What if they can't be seen? What if they don't want to see you? They don't have to see you. Maybe they just don't want to deal with you. It's not their program. You know, if you call me up, and I'll tell you something that's happened to me 20 times. People come up to me in the LAX Hilton in Los Angeles, and they'll say, "I'm so-and-so, and I need to make an amends to you." I say, I don't know you. And they said, "I used to think you were a fat jerk. Now I think you're okay." Well, thank you for the information. But seriously speaking, do I really need to know this? Is this really an amends, or are you offending me for nothing? Are you going out of your way to offend me for nothing? If you think that I'm a fat, ugly, stupid jerk, that's not my business. And I really, honestly, I don't need to know that. You're probably lovely, and maybe you're right. I don't know. But what I can tell you is, if I don't know you, don't come up to me in Los Angeles and say, "I want to make an amends to you. You're Harlan? Okay, I want to make an amends to you. I used to think you were a dumb, stupid, fat jerk, and now I think you're okay." That's not an amends. That's not an amends. That's hurting me for nothing. For nothing. Keep that to yourself. Tell that. Do you see where we're going with this? Don't use the 9th step to try to repair a relationship that you wish hadn't gone away. It's not about, I want to be friends with you, so I'm going to cook up an amends so we can sit down and hopefully be friends again. That's not what this is for. Did you harm the person? And if so, what did you do to them? And sometimes I tell people there's no amends to be made here. There's no amends to be made here. That is not a harm. That is the normal course of it. The most common one is I used to sleep with this woman or this man, and we sort of drifted away, and I need to make amends to that person. What did you do to them? Well, I broke up with them. You don't have to make an amends for breaking up with somebody. That is something that is in the normal course of life. That is not a harm. So I want to be very, very clear here that you need a sponsor. And when we make amends, we are making amends for harms done others. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Okay, now let's get to that injure them or others. Most of you know about Ernie Galbraith, Ernie G. in Akron. He was Alcoholics Anonymous #4, and he didn't get with the program. We're going to be reading about him on our Scottsdale meetings at night because he's going to be right after Bill Dotson. We're going to talk about a devil may care chap, and his name was Ernie Galbraith, and he ended up marrying Dr. Bob's daughter. And he couldn't stay sober, and eventually they divorced, and his daughter developed a huge resentment against AA for not getting Ernie sober. Now, the reason I'm telling you about Ernie Galbraith, but then he got sober and so on. Okay. I want to talk to you about another Ernie, Ernie Gehrig. Just like the disease, just like the baseball player, Gehrig. Ernie Gehrig. And Ernie Gehrig lived in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And Ypsilanti, Michigan does not start with an I, it starts with a Y. How many people, show of hands, knew that Ypsilanti, Michigan starts with a Y? Not too many. Okay, well, I'm glad we covered that. Well, anyway, he lived in Patty did. Okay, good. So Ypsilanti, Michigan was the home, and we've got a couple more people. Lori, she knows that. Okay, fine. All right, now, Ernie Gehrig, he was an alcoholic with a young wife, but he still wasn't ready to pack up his tackle box yet. And there were lots of fish in the sea. So even though he was married, he liked to have other girlfriends. And so one day his wife got hold of an uncle of hers who had a job for Ernie in Toledo, Ohio. So off they went to Toledo, Ohio, under the pressure of, if we move there and I don't divorce your stupid drunk butt, you're done with the girls. Okay. So the geographic was in place and it didn't work. Goes to Toledo. He's got a bunch of girlfriends and a wife. And then his wife heard about a doctor in Akron that was fixing drunks. So off they went to Akron, Ohio. And just about the time that Bill Wilson was leaving Akron in August of 1935 is when the Gehrigs showed up in Akron. And the Gehrigs moved in with Dr. Bob and Ann Smith. And they lived there, and it was October, just like it is now. It's October. And Ernie had girlfriends in Akron as well. And his wife had enough of his BS, and she said, the hell with him. I'm going to go get myself a boyfriend. And she did. On Friday night was the Oxford group meeting that they would attend. And they went to the Oxford group meeting, and they were there, and Ernie was in with the drunks, the alcoholics, and his wife, she was in there with the wives and the kids. And she tells some of the Oxford groupers about her boyfriend, and she's had enough of his philandering. And they are aghast, and they tell her right away, you've got to make amends. You got to make restitution to Ernie for what you've done. It doesn't matter that he had girlfriends. You need to make restitution to Ernie because what you did is not okay. So she decides on Saturday afternoon, she's going to get the courage up and she's going to make restitution to Ernie. And Dr. Bob and Ann Smith were out shopping for groceries. And Dr. Bob loved his Oldsmobile. So they were driving their Oldsmobile and they're out getting groceries. And Ernie Gehrig's wife says to him in the kitchen, now, if you've ever been to Dr. Bob's house, and I have been there, you know how small the kitchen is. Very small, very tiny, very tiny. She lays this on him. Thank God she was fast on her feet because he grabbed a knife and he started chasing her through the house. And he's making stabbing motions with the knife to try to kill her because Ernie operated on a very double standard. It was okay for him to step out of the marriage, but it wasn't okay for her to step out of the marriage. That was not okay. So in walks Dr. Bob and in walks Ann Smith, arms full of groceries. And it's a miracle he didn't kill Ann Smith because his hand was coming down and he almost stabbed her in the face with the knife. He just missed. Dr. Bob gets involved and the Smiths told them that they have to leave. You cannot stay here anymore. You've got to leave and leave immediately. I cannot have you running through the house trying to kill your wife. I cannot have you running through the house almost killing my wife. You guys want to kill yourselves? That's fine. Don't do it in my home. Don't do it here. So Ernie Gehrig is the reason that you have the words, except when to do so would injure them or others. Sometimes, and again, don't do this on your own. Sometimes you have to put a harm in your pocket. Let's say you were kissing somebody's husband or you were kissing somebody's wife and they don't know about it. Do you have the right to go up to their house and spill the beans about this to somebody who you're only going to hurt them? No, you do not. No, you do not. And so we have these words, except when to do so would injure them or others, because we are not in the business here of causing more harm through our action. We're here to set right the past as best we can, not create more garbage, more carnage in our wake. This is very important stuff. We learn from the past. That's why history is so vital, so vital. And so I'm trying to give you information here that you're not going to get in the meetings. You're not going to get this from, in most cases, from your sponsor. You're not going to get this from the big book because it's not in there. So we have lessons that we learn if we're smart as to what to do and what not to do to maximize the chance that we can be among the recovered. We can be among the recovered. And isn't that the point? Isn't that the point? So check with your sponsor and understand that if it's money, you pay them back. If it's whatever, you restitute them. But be prepared for you are going to have to make sacrifices. But God will be there. When you walk to him, he'll run to you. He'll run to you. He's never let you down so far. Maybe you had some disappointment. I've had a few of those. Maybe you've had your heart broken a few times. I've been there. Maybe things didn't go your way. So you're saying to yourself, this God you're talking about, Harlan, is not the God that I understand. Test him. Test him. See where you can find him lacking. See where you can find God inadequate. You will fail in your quest. It may not go your way, but if it goes God's way, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. Don't let fear stand in the way of the most beautiful, blessed way of life imaginable. I don't have a perfect life, but I've got a damn good life. I've got a damn good life. You know what I'm grateful for today? I'm wearing a Ducks t-shirt that came from a normal store. I'm wearing shorts because it's going to be 100 degrees here today. I'm wearing shorts that come from a normal store. I'm wearing whatever I'm wearing normal. Every garment in my house fits me or it's too big. Every shirt, every pair of pants, every garment in this house fits me fine. Some of them are so loose I cannot wear them. But there's not one garment in this house that's too small. Not one. I've got a closet full of shirts and a closet full of pants, and they all fit. I said it 3 times because that's freedom. I see a garment, I want to wear it, I put it on, I know it fits. I wore out my clothes. I never wore out a garment unless it was the thighs, in the middle that would rub together. My garments would they'd be ruined. But I never wore out a garment. I just outgrew it. So the bottom line is, this is a great way of life. But the price of this way of life is to make these amends. Because one of the things that Sam Shoemaker teaches us is unmade amends, or restitution is his language. He doesn't talk about amends. Amends is AA language and restitution is Oxford Group language. I hope that's clear. They mean the same thing. Okay? But Sam Shoemaker told you in those impediments, you are not going to recover with unmade amends. Not going to happen. Let's do a paragraph or 2 in the 8 minutes we have left. I take a lot of time to give you this stuff because I think it's important. I hope you enjoyed it, but I hope you learned from it. I hope it's something that helps you to be a better sponsor. I hope it's something that will help you to be a better sponsee. I hope it's something that you will pass to people as you sponsor them in the meetings, because they may not get this information from any other source but you. They may not get it. Okay, it's very important. Except when to do so would injure them or others. And this is why we have those words in the book, because of lessons from Ernie Gehrig and his wife. We don't know what happened to them. We know they went back to Ypsilanti. We know that Ernie Gehrig was institutionalized in mental institutions. We knew that he sort of went crazy. He had a very big breakdown. But that's about all we have on Ernie Gehrig. We don't know any other details. Did he die drunk? Did he die sober? We don't know. We don't know. But what we suspect is he died institutionalized because he did have some mental health problems. Okay, let's go to the bottom of 76. We haven't covered one word yet, and we're almost out of time. Probably there are still some misgivings as we look at over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt. We may feel diffident. Diffident just means timid or shy. We're afraid about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured, to some people we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. That indicates that if somebody I'm approaching doesn't need to hear about the God in my life, I don't say anything to them. I don't say anything to them about it, because why do that? I know I'm living that way. They don't have to know I'm living that way. And we it says on our first approach. That's assuming you're going to be paying them out money or something. What if you only have one approach? That's okay too. There were people I paid them in one lump sum. I was done. We were done. That was it. There's no reason to keep this up. Top of 77. We might prejudice them, but at the moment we are trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. The next sentence should be highlighted in your book, highlighted in your mind, and tattooed in your soul. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. I cannot be of max. We're going to talk about this sentence next week as well. I promise you. We're going to talk about this sentence. I cannot be of maximum service to anyone if I'm in the food. Once those Fritos, those Oreo cookies hit my mouth, I become an eating, obsessing machine. All I can think about is more. I can't think. You may be standing there having a conversation with me, and you think I'm paying attention to you, and maybe I am. I don't know. But the only thing I'm really thinking about is I need more of these potato chips and I need them right away. Will this guy ever shut up so I can get away from him and get more food? That is really the only thing I can think about at that moment. That's the only thing I can think about. Let's continue. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. In other words, if I just harmed you, I may not want to go right up to you and tell you, oh, I've discovered God and all that. You ever notice some of these mass murderers in jail? These guys are mass murderers, and all of a sudden they'll interview them like a year later or 20 years later or whatever. They're all like, God this and God. They all discovered God, and that's fine. But why didn't they discover him before they killed the family? Why didn't they discover God before they did harm to our society? I just wish they would have discovered God before the fact, but after the fact is better than nothing. Okay. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. If I'm still eating or I won't make amends, I'm going to be eating, I can't carry any message. But our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. In other words, you owe me money. I love God. God's great. Where's my money? Or you did this. You broke my car, or you broke my house, or I want it repaired. You need to do this, this, and this. And then you can talk to me about God and this and sobriety. These words are warnings, and they must be heeded. They must be heeded. That's very, very important. Okay. I hope that we will always remember how important it is to learn where these things come from, because it enhances for me the knowledge. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Now, there is a history there from the Oxford group. We're going to get into that a little more next week. And we're going to do that because the Wilsons, Lois and Bill, were really not in good favor with the Oxford groupers at the end of their stay. And Bill pulled the groups out of the Oxford group in 1937. Dr. Bob didn't pull the groups out until Clarence Snyder acted up in 1939. In September of 39, Bill pulled the New York groups out of the Oxford group in the summer of 37. Why? Because the Oxford groupers in New York were telling Bill he wasn't being maximum. What does being maximum mean? He was bringing in drunks. They wanted him to bring in Wall Street people, business people. Even though it was the height of the Depression, there were still people that had money. And he was bringing in the drunks. And they said, you're not being maximum. You're not being maximum meant you weren't listening to what we want. And he pulled the AA groups out of the Oxford group, and he started the AA movement in New York in 1937. But as I say, in Akron, they didn't leave the Oxford group until September of 39. Dr. Bob was very entrenched with the Oxford groupers. He didn't want to leave. But the Oxford groupers kept telling Bill, you're not being maximum. You're not being maximum. Oh, this is a bafangu. This is the Italian salute. Back to the Oxford groupers. We're going to talk about that and other things next week. We're going to talk about being of maximum service to God and the people about us. And this step 9, as the great emancipator, is going to facilitate that tremendously. Okay, I'm going to turn this back over to